Welcome to a deep dive into one of the most mysterious and captivating aspects of the Chernobyl disaster, the artifacts left behind in the wake of the catastrophe. In this video, we will unravel the enigmatic tales of these objects, starting with one of the most notorious artifacts, the mop adjacent to the infamous elephant's foot. Prepare yourself for an exploration of the unknown, where reality blurs into the surreal, and discover why these remnants have garnered such fascination. Stick around to uncover the full story, and don't forget to subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and share your thoughts in the comments. The Stalker video game series, inspired by the novel Roadside Picnic, features artifacts, objects altered by exposure to anomalies, providing special bonuses to players and fetching high prices when sold. These artifacts are legacies of past events, much like the real-world items found within the Chernobyl sarcophagus. Though these artifacts may not offer supernatural powers, they have been forever changed by the alien-like environment within the sarcophagus, sparking intense curiosity and desire among collectors and historians alike. Some artifacts are more significant and intriguing than others, yet each has its own story worth telling. Over the years, some individuals have even gone to the lengths of faking possession of these artifacts. One of the most infamous and peculiar artifacts, already featured in my video about the elephant's foot, is the mop found adjacent to it. This mop appears in some of the earliest footage taken after the disaster, leading to the conclusion that it was present when the corium, molten nuclear fuel mixed with other materials, was formed. As the corium cooled and spread through the corridor, it wasn't hot enough at that stage to destroy the mop's wood or fabric. Instead, the cooling lava enveloped it, leaving it standing alone in the middle of the corridor. Over time, scientists moved the mop, likely because it obstructed their path as they navigated around the elephant's foot to study more corium and concrete in the back of the room. They relocated it behind a pillar on the left side of the room, where it remains today. The future of this mop is uncertain. It will likely be disposed of due to its high contamination levels, having been in close proximity to the elephant's foot during its formation. However, the strangest aspect of this artifact is how it managed to stand upright for months, possibly even years. Perhaps the mop was originally in a bucket that melted into the corium, protecting it from the worst of the heat while keeping it upright. This small yet baffling detail adds another layer to the mystery and intrigue surrounding the Chernobyl disaster artifacts. Join us as we delve deeper into the stories behind these haunting relics. Make sure to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and leave your comments below about what you think might be the fate of these fascinating artifacts. Your engagement helps us bring more intriguing content to you. Another iconic Chernobyl artifact is a red wooden chair that mysteriously appeared inside the reactor hull. According to Alexander Kupny, the chair is near the reactor shaft itself, and around it we can see the remains of the parachutes attached to sandbags dropped into the reactor, some of which are almost lying atop the chair. What does Alexander Kupny know about this? Very little. According to him, nobody actually knows what caused the chair to find itself in such a hostile environment, suggesting that somebody may have thrown it in there. Who threw it, he does not specify. How did this random chair end up in the reactor hull? The mystery has a straightforward answer. The chair likely belonged to the refueling machine operator's room located directly above where it was found. It was probably already in the reactor hull when the explosion occurred and survived due to its position. The explosion's force was directed mainly upwards, with most horizontal energy moving eastward. Being located west and as far from the reactor as possible, the chair managed to endure the blast. Though this explanation may demystify the chair, its presence remains intriguing. Such a mundane object, surrounded by alien debris in a perilously dangerous zone, captures the imagination. According to Kupny, the radiation level still approaches 100 Roentgens per hour, meaning the chair is heavily contaminated. If it is ever removed, Many would be drawn to this radioactive chair, pondering the true story behind its presence in one of the world's most hazardous rooms. Now, a much shorter tale for these two artifacts, staying with Kupny and inside the reactor hall. The story behind them is simple. First, the hacksaw. An expedition worker tried to collect a sample from nearby fuel rods by cutting it off with a hacksaw. Unfortunately, the fuel rod was stronger than the hacksaw, breaking it in two. The workers left the broken hacksaw behind, never collecting their sample. This scene of failure was later captured by Kupny in one of his photographs. As for the hat, we have to traverse across the eastern side of the building to the access point under the reserved refueling machine control room and take a look around. Do you see it? Someone left their bright orange hard hat amongst the rubble. It has likely been never more than a decade. What happened? We can assume that someone was exploring the reactor hall and, by complete accident, lost their footing or just knocked it off their head by mistake. Regardless, the hat found itself on the floor, and it would have instantly been too contaminated to pick up and wear, so they just left it to be someone else's problem. To make up for the much shorter entry, this one will be a double entry as it refers to two separate artifacts, one literally much bigger than the other. The first one is, of course, the iconic vent stack that used to be between Units 3 and 4. As of today, however, this vent stack has been replaced by a much smaller one. So what happened to the vent stack? Where is it today? It turns out that it's in the turbine hall, having been cut into pieces. Today, this radioactive relic remains entombed in a forgotten place just on the other side of the Unit 3 control room where visitors look at buttons and switches. The fate of the vent stack is certain. At some point, the object will be taken for disposal. It will be cut up further, processed, and then buried at Santa Fe. For many, it will consider the most iconic object in the exclusion zone, certainly the most iconic part of the sarcophagus. The artifact in Chernobyl is much smaller, and to understand its unusual story, we need to go to 1986 and the post-accident modifications to the sarcophagus. Some of them are more well-known, such as the Dose of Each Guy stairs, a flight of stairs from floor +24 descending all the way down to +12.5 to allow workers to safely reach the lower levels of the building. There's also the massive concrete wall that has been erected along the back of the Unit 4 control room, cutting off some of the outer panels and desks to make the room safer for tours. But close by, we see more structural changes. Many walls were erected, new rooms created. This includes room 3.9, a dosimetry room to measure the dose of workers returning from the sarcophagus. And if you look in the photos of these rooms, you can just make out a second vent stack. This room hasn't been used in years. So what happened to this small model? Well, this artifact has actually been collected. One form of sarcophagus worker by the name of Igor Kavichenko decided to take the model with him when he retired. It is now kept in his garage, the only artifact on this list not kept within the sarcophagus. By far the most iconic and sought-after sarcophagus artifact, the AZ-5 button has eluded historians and collectors alike since the 1986 disaster. Despite being one of the most important factors in the accident, so where is it? The first question is to answer what the button looked like in the first place. As it was a button, not a switch, there is this photo of the switch which has gone viral several times for being an AZ-5 switch, but it is not. It is the COM switch, as you can read in the text. This switch was used to disconnect the control rods from their electromagnetic clutches so they will fall into the reactor under gravity. Of course, this had no effect on the accident, but it is still considered the last control used by operators before the disaster. Hence the plaque. The AZ-5 button has only ever been seen 2 times. Once in this photo of the Unit 4 control room under construction and in this video of the Unit 4 control room before the explosion. Afterward, they vanished. In the first photos after the disaster, the absence of the AZ-5 button is plainly visible. Who took it? Nobody knows, but we can debunk a few of the more popular claims. In 1989, A TV documentary claimed to have found the infamous AZ5 button. However, there was a notable discrepancy. The button they showcased, while seemingly the right model, was blue. The actual AZ5 button is distinctly red. Another significant claim comes from Alexander Kovalenko, a former worker at the nuclear power plant, who asserts that he was given the AZ5 button by Boris Sherbina in 1988. Yet this story has issues. Comparing Kovalenko's button to the real AZ5 or to a similar model I possess from a few years later, there are clear differences. Both the genuine AZ5 and my model are larger, flatter, and shorter. Either Kovalenko has mistaken his button for the AZ5, or he is not being truthful. According to the government commission, the real AZ5 was taken and is likely either stored in an unknown location or destroyed because it was no longer needed. If it is in storage, it would be one of the most highly sought-after artifacts of the Chernobyl disaster. We conclude with the most dangerous artifacts from Chernobyl: the leftover fuel rods. Not every fuel rod melted in the explosion. Some survived and were ejected from the building. This led to highly radioactive hotspots scattered across various levels of the sarcophagus. Workers had to collect these rods, often by hand, for disposal. These artifacts are ones to avoid as they can cause serious harm. While most of the surviving rods have been collected, it is possible that one remains hidden, posing a threat to anyone who encounters it. These are just a few of the iconic objects from Chernobyl. Many more lie hidden within the extensive corridors and halls of the building. Perhaps someday, some of these artifacts will be displayed in museums, allowing the public to fully appreciate the strange and harrowing stories of the sarcophagus artifacts.